Hi everyone, Nemo here, back to fact check another video from Fair Mormon's latest string of attempts to discredit the CES letter, so let's get to it.
The first vision of Joseph Smith, a beautiful and foundational event in Latter-day Saint theology. Attacking the first vision is one of the few things that brings Trump-voting, beer-drinking Southern Republican Christians into agreement with Bernie-loving, kombucha-sipping Northwestern atheists. That, and being really uncomfortable around black people. Don't worry, I'm allowed to make that joke.
This section of the CES letter quotes President Hinckley saying, "Our whole strength rests on the validity of that first vision. It either occurred or it did not occur. If it did not, then this whole work is a fraud. If it did, then it is the most important and wonderful work under the heavens."
Well, out of context, that quote may seem like a seed to plant doubt, but unlike the author of the CES letter, I can read more than just the easy quips. I love this quote by President Hinckley. "I am not worried that the prophet Joseph..."
Right, here Quaker implies he's going to read more from the whole talk by Gordon B. Hinckley than just the quote from the CES letter. Instead, he quotes a talk from 7 years earlier. He insinuates he's going to provide greater context, but instead moves the argument to a different point. President Hinckley's defense of the multiple first vision accounts. The question at hand was the quote which dealt with the significance of the first vision and the ultimatum President Hinckley gave, and he's not the only one that's made this point. D. Todd Christofferson said, either Joseph Smith saw and conversed with the Father and the Son that spring day of 1820, or he did not. Church leaders are a fan of making this kind of ultimatum.
Joseph Smith gave a number of versions of the first vision, any more than I am worried that there are 4 different writers of the Gospels in the New Testament, each with his own perceptions, each telling the events to meet his own purpose for writing at the time. I am more concerned with the fact that God has revealed in this dispensation a great and marvelous and beautiful plan that motivates men and women to love their Creator and their Redeemer, to appreciate and serve one another, to walk in faith on the road that leads to immortality and eternal life.
The problem with this argument that President Hinckley is making is it conflates multiple accounts stemming from the same person with multiple accounts from different people.
Now, the CES letter states that there are at least 4 different first vision accounts by Joseph Smith.
It also says that the church admits this in the gospel topics essays. Okay, spoiler, one of the goals of the CES letter is to convince the readers that the church hides this information, yet weirdly enough, acknowledges that the church blatantly admits it too.
This seeming contradiction that Quaker presents is due to the fact that the CS letter was written before the church released its essays, so it writes from a perspective of this information being pretty well hidden. However, in a later update, Jeremy took the time to acknowledge that the church has taken steps towards making official information that was once written off as anti-Mormon literature.
Even old school church videos talk about this. I mean, look at this terrible quality old VHS video of the first vision from 1976.
During this time of great excitement, my mind was called up to serious reflection and great uneasiness, considering that all could not be right and that God could not be the author of so much confusion. I determined to investigate the subject more fully.
Fun fact.
The narration in this video has to do with the events leading up to the first vision, not the first vision itself. It's a straw man argument which provides no evidence of the point at hand. The vision itself is where the discrepancies between the multiple accounts are problematic. Discrepancies as fundamental as how many heavenly beings were present.
In fact, this is the only movie in world history that was filmed with a toaster.
Now, obviously, there are different accounts of the first vision. Each one works together so well. However, anti-Mormons like to create problems that don't exist.
So,
labeling critics as anti-Mormons is to use charged language to discredit earnest critics.
So let's address these problems. The first problem is that in the 1832 account, Joseph only talks about the Lord and not the Father and the Lord. Now, obviously, this isn't a contradiction. If a child leaves his house and says that he talked to his mom, it doesn't mean that his dad wasn't there and vice versa. If the 1832 account...
Right, okay. This is another straw man. This example of a child fails to consider the magnitude of the first vision as an event. Also, if the child were to later claim they had talked to both parents, then the earlier claim, which only included one parent, would be called into question. Why didn't you mention speaking to your father too, etc.?
Account explicitly said, "I spoke with Jesus and saw Jesus alone as the only host of heaven," then it would be an issue, but it doesn't say that. It just gives emphasis to the Son. Written in private, it wasn't meant to be a declarative statement on church history.
The letter...
Hang on. It wasn't meant to be a declarative statement on church history. I'm sorry. If this event was so important as the members believe it to be, then a written statement of such a miraculous thing, especially one written by Joseph's own hand, would be seen as a reliable witness to this event amongst believers. Are they trying to insinuate the 1832 account isn't reliable because it wasn't intended for public distribution? That seems weak to me.
Also notes the fact that the account was written 12 years after the event occurred. He didn't write it down in 1820 or 1821. Is that a problem? No. Joseph made clear he wasn't educated early in his life. He wasn't literate. He didn't write it down. By the CES.
Right, okay. Let's have a look at the 1832 account and then we'll deal with this. It's the only account Joseph wrote in his own hand and was recorded in 1832, 12 years after the event, and several years before the one found in the Standard Works. It says, I was filled with the Spirit of God, and the Lord opened the heavens unto me, and I saw the Lord. And he spake unto me, saying, Joseph, my son, thy sins are forgiven thee. Go thy way, walk in my statutes, and keep my commandments. Behold, I am the Lord of glory. I was crucified for the world, that all those who believe on my name may have eternal life. In this account, he only saw one personage, the Lord. I've read the church's attempt in their essay to explain how Joseph saying the Lord could mean that he saw two personages. I would encourage you to read that and let me know if it makes sense to you. The 1832 account says, the Lord opened the heavens upon me, and I saw the Lord. In the 1838 account, it states, I saw two personages, one of whom introduced the other as my beloved son. Which one is it? Did Joseph see one personage or two?
Letters logic, we should just assume that all illiterate people are liars unless they have diaries.
Right. It's true that the earliest account we have, as I've mentioned, wasn't written until 12 years after the event. But it's a fallacious logical leap to assume that Joseph was illiterate and therefore wouldn't have written it for another 12 years. If Joseph was truly illiterate, he wouldn't have written anything in his own hand at all. He wouldn't have been able to. A common tactic by apologists, covered in some of my previous videos, is to pick and choose when Joseph's illiteracy works for them, when it supports their claims. We can discount the scribes he employed when their words hinder our argument, like the Clayton and the Kinderhook plates. But we have to admit Joseph's own writing when his literacy narrative suits. You can't have it both ways.
Joseph didn't really begin writing things down until 1830 when he received a revelation that becomes Doctrine and Covenants, section 20.
The letter states that the 1832 account holds Joseph to be 15 instead of 14. This is just a mistake by scribe Frederick G. Williams, not even a problem.
Here we go, blaming the scribes. I have to admit that I personally find the discrepancy in age less troubling than the fact Joseph was unclear as to which deities appeared to him, but that's just me.
Now, Brad, the 1832 account doesn't say that he asked God which church to join.
This is true, but it does say he called upon the Lord, which we all assume includes asking the Lord questions about what to do.
No, you can assume that, but that's your personal assumption.
That's usually always what call upon means.
No, it's not always what call upon means. If I went to another town to call upon my friend Michael, I wouldn't be asking him what to do, I'd be paying him a visit.
The 1832 account also has no description of being attacked by Satan.
Is that a picture of John DeLynne's face? Photoshopped onto a pagan image of Satan of some kind? Right, I see ad hominem hasn't become tedious to them at least.
Well, none of the accounts explicitly recall that, only feelings of darkness and doom. Satan is assumed by the reader and believer.
We'd like to quote Jim Bennett when he said, the fact that Joseph doesn't feel it necessary to recount every detail of the vision every time he tells it is evidence of authenticity, not fraud. A con man gets his story straight at the outset and never varies from it. They also get nervous when the questions go to details they hadn't thought of yet. Joseph obviously felt no need to remember anything by rote. He could recount all or part of the story without fear that he'd get caught in a contradiction. I think that if this version read precisely like the more familiar 1838 version, it would be more suspicious, not less. That's not how human beings recount events.
Except he was caught in contradictions because there are statements made in the accounts that don't line up, such as which church to join versus he'd already decided. Now, there is also a difference between every detail and the major ones. A major detail of the first vision is which deity Joseph encountered. It's the backbone of the LDS doctrine which refutes the Trinitarian view of God.
Another supposed problem is that Joseph contradicts his feelings about which churches are true. In the 1832 account, he says, by searching the scriptures, I found that mankind did not come unto the Lord, but that they had apostatized from the true and living faith. However, in the 1838 account, he says, in the midst of this war.
Hang on, he didn't quote the full quote there. The full quote is, I found that mankind did not come unto the Lord, but that they had apostatized from the true and living faith. There was no society or denomination that was built upon the gospel of Jesus Christ as recorded in the New Testament. There was no society or denomination that was built upon the gospel of Jesus Christ as recorded in the New Testament.
War of words and tumult of opinions, I often said to myself, what is to be done? Who of all these parties are right, or are they all wrong together? If any one of them be right, which is it, and how shall I know it?
Now, the context that's missing here is the phrase entered into my heart. In the 1838 account, Joseph states, my object in going to inquire of the Lord was to know which of all the sects was right, that I might know which to join. For at this time it had never entered into my heart that all were wrong.
Essentially, Joseph has a feeling that the churches are wrong. Intellectually, he feels they are flawed, but it isn't until the vision that it enters into his heart that they are wrong. Joseph Smith history and the Doctrine and Covenants show that revelation to the mind and heart become the final way to determine truth as far as Joseph Smith is concerned.
That's the angle we're going for here. That until the actual first vision, Joseph wasn't fully convinced that all were wrong. Then why did he say, there was no society or denomination that was built upon the gospel of Jesus Christ as recorded in the New Testament? Why is this such a declarative statement if he's not yet convinced of this school of thought?
The letter also claims that nobody ever knew Joseph had the vision until the 1832 account. That's just dishonest journalism.
Okay, so I started writing the script for this project in August 2019. My parents know about it, but neither of us ever communicated about this project over text. By the CES letter's logic, they had no idea this video existed until 2020. Now, just because a written recognition of it doesn't exist, doesn't mean they don't know. For Runnels to assume the family had no idea of the first vision simply because we don't have any written statements by his family about it is a flawed argument.
That's a good point, Kwaku. However, you're comparing your writing of the script for this show to an appearance by extraterrestrial beings in a pillar of light. The subtext of Runnels' point is that the event was huge, a big deal, so why did it take 12 years to write it down? And he does provide evidence that it wasn't widely circulated in the form of a quote by James B. Allen, former BYU professor and assistant church historian. The quote is, there is little, if any, evidence, however, that by the 1830s Joseph was telling the story in public. At least if he were telling it, no one seemed to consider it important enough to have recorded it at the time, and no one was criticizing him for it. Not even his own history did Joseph Smith mention being criticized in this period for telling the story of the first vision. The fact that none of the available contemporary writings about Joseph Smith in the 1830s, none of the publications of the church in that decade, and no contemporary journal or correspondence yet discovered mentions the story of the first vision is convincing evidence that at best it received only limited circulation in those early days.
Also, in 1831, The Reflector, a Palmyra newspaper, makes fun of Joseph for claiming he saw God. So if people are mocking Joseph for saying he had a vision, that assumes Joseph claimed he had a vision. Jeremy Runnels is...
So they put the source for that in the bottom corner, and it says it's in the description, but I can't find it anywhere, so I don't know if that newspaper's legit or not.
Claims that this had no backing until 1832 is just false.
The letter claims that Joseph's recollection of history is wrong because apparently he claimed there was a religious revival in Palmyra in 1820. The revivals were in 1817 and 1824. Okay, wait. Pause. Okay, so Runnels is saying that because there was only a revival in 1817 and 1824, it's impossible that Joseph could have had a vision during a revival in 1820. Well, first, Runnels has to prove that revivals had a cutoff point. So from 1817 to 1819, the first revival happened.
Right, so Fair Mormon have addressed this in a more scholarly way, I'd say. And they've addressed the date issue, and Jeremy cites that in his letter. Their response was, and I'll quote it, references to regional revival activity in the Palmyra Register, a newspaper which Joseph's family would have read, are clearly evident. While these revivals did not occur in Palmyra itself, their mention in the local newspapers would have given Joseph Smith the sense that there was substantial revival activity in the region. This is a long way from Joseph saying that the Methodists were calling low here and others low there. That makes it sound like he was in the midst of it within his own town. The idea that actually what was going on is Joseph was reading about it in a newspaper doesn't seem like the same narrative, just in my view.
happen. And then 1820, it just ended, and there was no revival, so Joseph was lying. And then, like, 1821 to 22, it picked back up to go to 24. This is nonsense. First of all, revivals don't just have, like, an end date. It's not a day where they all woke up in Palmyra and went, all right, I'm done with religion. Let's chill for a little bit. Let's drink some barley beer or whatever they had with those Mayflower people. The point is, this is a nonsensical argument. Revivals don't just end. They kind of last for a long time. Just watch Star Wars. By the way, Star Wars is trash.
Whoa! Cut!
Yeah, I'd say we need to cut there as well. Thank you all for watching, and be sure to tune in next week. Leave suggestions of what you want fact-checking in the comments below, and I'm willing to tackle most church media. If you feel there's something in need of fact-checking, let me know. And so you know when I upload, feel free to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you liked it. Thank you all. Bye now.